Hello, hi, welcome to everyone following us this afternoon. My name is Cristina Stoinescu. I'm the curator at the Romanian Association for Contemporary Art. We are here for the Insomnia events that we already gotten used to for the past 2 years. We're now holding another Zoom talk with curator Linda Peitz and artist Megan Dominescu. I'm really happy that they joined tonight. I will talk very briefly for the start to make an introduction. Within this project, which is financed through the EA grants, through the Cultura program, we were very happy to organize this Insomnia talks and events with the curators and artists we invited, but also the curators and artists that participated in our residencies throughout 2021-2022. So I'm really happy to see again Linda Peitz, who was the curator in residence during December and January. She's a creative director, project manager, and curator living in Berlin. And yes, I'm reading off the paper now about the name, founder and director of Curatorial Collective, connecting concepts of communication and art. But I really love how you write it with lots of CCs at the end. Since 2020, and you're also the curator and exhibition manager of the gallery Ebensberger. And as a curator and exhibition manager, you're responsible of exhibition planning and curating, but also making the liaisons between the gallery and the art spaces. I've had the opportunity to meet you, Linda, this winter and talk a bit more about your curatorial practice. And I'm really happy that it was able also for Megan Dominescu to join our talk today, because lots of your part of your residency discovery was connected with Megan Dominescu's work. Megan is working with painting and textiles. She graduated from the University of Arts in Bucharest, lived for a while in Washington, DC, and she's now in the Bucharest art world, international exhibitions throughout these past few years that I really enjoyed seeing. And I'm really happy that we get to talk more about your art, Megan. So again, thank you both for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It's
really
our pleasure.
I would really love to start from the title of the event today with manipulating fabrics, and maybe just start off with how did you find Bucharest, Linda, and how come you started focusing on textile art?
Yes, thank you again for this lovely introduction. And yeah, I had a very great time in Bucharest. And I think like what amazed me most is how like the community of artists and the structure of the art world in general functions a little differently, I would say, than in Berlin, for example. As you told, I'm with my collective that I founded, I'm interested.
Sorry, this is me. We were recording it for Facebook, so sorry.
No worries. So this interest that I have is a lot about communication. And this is also the collective is also about this, like, as you said, like the name is very long, but it's also, if you like have the short version, you would just pronounce it as coma. And yeah, well, it's the idea is to like connect different structures and people inside the city, and not necessarily go into like places that are connected to art, and then to see which urban structures and social structures we have in the city, which people are there, and to invite artists to work together on a project. And I think in Berlin, it's very different from Bucharest, at least from what I experienced. And what I liked a lot is that you have also the possibility to have like a community in one place. For example, this space that I encountered called Atelier Malmaison, I think, for me is very special because this doesn't really exist in Berlin. Of course, you have studios in one place, maybe several artist studios, but there's no such spaces where you have institution and institutions and galleries and artist studio combined, right? I mean, is this something you maybe, not everyone's kind of type of this kind of community, but if you like it, I think it can have like a lot of advantages to really be like working closely together and stuff like this, you know, like the communication is very different if you're in one place. And Berlin is such a big city, and there are so many different like areas and also different types of galleries and institutions. There are so many off spaces. I don't know, it's like there's hundreds of them, and also they're popping up new ones all the time, which is great. You know, the dynamic is amazing, but sometimes I also like this idea of having something that lasts and that can develop then from there, you know, like inside the structure. So yeah, this is something what was like.
Because Bucharest is also quite eclectic and spread about in the art spaces. But I think I always enjoyed also these studios, even before Malmaison, that you could come and see like a collective of artists working together. Megan knows this very well at Moxa as well, because it's the group that you have there is also something great to work with other artists in the studio, sometimes difficult as well.
Yes, our studio at Moxa 20 is, we are 4 members, and there have been people that have come in and out throughout the years, but we have our core group of 4 people, and we do share a large studio, and it's kind of nice because we all do something different. I do my own work, my painting and my textile work. My colleague does screen printing on shirts, paper, anything you want. We also have a photographer, and we have clothing, but I like in Bucharest, what I found, and also at Malmaison, is that things are a little bit more centralized somehow. Maybe it's because the community is a bit smaller than in Berlin, or there's less of an influx of new people coming in, and people tend to sort of mesh with each other more. And I feel like this is where these types of places come from, like at Malmaison or at Moxa, or there are not actually too many places quite like this, but this idea of a lot of people doing different things on different levels, and on different levels in, how you said, like in institutions and galleries and artists, and all of the, like, it's not a hierarchy, let's say, but all of this that creates this art world that all work together in one place is very special. And I also have not seen that somewhere else. So that's actually quite a good observation of yours, Linda.
But I think it was very nice also during a curatorial residency to be able to see more studios together.
Yeah. So yeah, but sorry, I was. You also asked me about how I was getting in touch with Megan's work, right? I was just thinking about this because my background is actually in text and writing, so to say, in languages. So I think what I liked about her work a lot is her like textile as a means of actually transporting messages. So I mean, differently from just text, because it combines text and images, and there you also have this connection also already in the word itself, because textile and text, you know, that's like it's the same origin. So I was thinking a lot about this, like how you could like actually speak about the world through images and signs and languages in this type of, you know, medium. And yeah, I think it has like gone through like some kind of like renewing, because textile was not so, I mean, until actually quite recently, I would say it was not such considered an art form at all. So I think that's also something to point out. I mean, like textile works in terms of like handicraft has been there for hundreds of years, but only, I don't know, I can remember artists like, for example, Annie Albers, who's from the Bauhaus movement, and like when she was at the Bauhaus, she was one of the first like really working with textile, but because she was actually forced to do it, you know. The other like crafts were reserved for the men actually, so she was like still in this kind of idea of this is a female kind of craft. And then but afterwards like she became like super famous with these kind of works, and I think it got developed even more like during the 70s, and then through other artists like maybe I don't know, even Judy Chicago and people like this. They then at that point it really became seen as an art form. And I feel like these days like a very young generation of artists are working again with these medium, and I think it's great. But then also like the form that you chose, Megan, is another like level of textile art, which is super interesting. Like I haven't encountered so many artists working with this hooking technique. I think, you know, like you had like sewing and embroidery and all that stuff, but this is like really special. And I wanted to ask you like how did you first of all maybe learn this technique at all, and how did you come about, like, I don't know, I think it came around in England and Canada like 100 or 200 years ago. It was like very popular from what I heard.
Yes.
Like this, because they didn't have access to like carpets and stuff from abroad, I think, and this is why they like it became popular to do it there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and they would use actually old scraps of fabric basically, and through this burlap canvas sack, like a coffee sack type of material, which is very cheap and very readily available, or and very easy to weave also, and very cheap to produce. And people would just use whatever scraps of fabric they had sitting around, and it actually creates a very thick, very warm carpet for the house. So it was a very easy solution to this, because where would people buy carpets? No, or put animal skins on the floor, which is way more difficult to hunt and skin and dry an animal than to cut up whatever scraps of things you have, even leather, even anything. And I also use this in my own work of using scraps and recycled things and clothing, and I sort of this urban scavenging for things, and that I feel like adds also a whole nother dimension to this, because I really do go out and look for these materials. And I also use some plastics, and I use random fluffy things that I find, and I find secondhand sweaters, and I undo them and then combine the colors with another secondhand sweater, and then I mix them together and it turns into a different combination of colors, and I use these. And it's sort of, even without necessarily having it be a conscious decision, it's kind of reminiscent of the old way of just kind of using what you have around. And I also use a lot of normal yarn, but I like to combine materials and just whatever I want to express to the world. I decide to put into these drawings.
Just to give an image, and I'm sorry to interrupt you for a bit, but while you talk, I would love to share some words on your from your website, just so people watching this can have an idea about what's going on. My small panic voice is that technology actually decided to hate me today, so I'm just taking a little longer. But I think I'm doing it. So I
doing
really
a great job.
That's great.
So I really like what you were talking about, the different textures. You don't really see it well here, but the actual shirt of the man is actually really fluffy, and that's one of the sweaters that you found.
It's 3D. It comes out a couple of centimeters, and the stripes, and you have to see them face to face. You can kind of see them in the pictures, but when you really look at them up close, you can see how many different materials are used in this, and how many seemingly unrelated materials are used that I try to combine in a way that I like.
I think I've got like some better images of the crypto coins where I think maybe you can see it a bit better. Like, for example, you've got this wool, but also synthetic.
Yeah, but
part
even
of the
even
material.
I feel like there's so, since I don't know, there's a whole, what you were saying before also about women and about textile art. I feel like since the transition has been made from, let's say, design or domestic use, from women doing things from textiles to fine art, is a big step, I would say, because even now I feel like a lot of textile artists and textile works are sort of considered a little bit, it can be a good thing and not necessarily a bad thing. It's an interesting interaction that people have with textile art, because they see it as a fluffy, soft thing that sort of like a soft sculpture, I guess you could say. They are quite sculptural because they do have a lot of texture, but I would compare them more to painting, actually, because of my background in painting, and because I also do paint, I have the same compositions. I mean, I do what I like, but I feel like people don't relate to them the same way they do to paintings, which is very interesting. With paintings, people are always a bit more reserved, and they're a bit more cautious, and I'm not physically cautious, but sort of cautious in a way that they don't, they see it as something further from them. And with textile works, people, because they know, oh yes, I have a rug in my house, and I have curtains in my on my windows. I don't know, people see this. It's really hard to get rid of this this idea that women making textile art is fine art.
Yeah, it's more like also maybe like an everyday object, as you say. Huh? But it's funny, like the connection to the canvas, because actually, like the base, the canvas is also textile, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's just like it's very close, and then you just have the paint on it, and it becomes this like very, I don't know.
We're just conditioned for it to become this very like superior object.
Exactly.
And like, oh, respect the painting, and of course you should respect the painting, but you should also respect the tapestries. You should also respect other things. No, it's not about respect, it's just about seeing them at the same level. And we're just, after hundreds and thousands of years of knowing that, okay, art, painting is a high form of art, and for some reason textile art, and I mean, in all different mediums in art, I feel like people have gotten a bit used to it, but in textile art, people, they want to touch it, they want to put it on their floor, they want to, I don't know, there's a whole different relationship, because people see it as a domestic thing by default, that it belongs in the house, or that it belongs, I don't know, in a certain way, because it's fluffy, basically, because it has this textile, these textile qualities. And it's a very interesting relationship, especially people seeing textile work for the first time and being like, oh wow, this is art. Oh, I never thought that this could be art.
In relation to this, but also to how Linda started the conversation, I really love this symmetry that you pointed out, that I don't think I ever thought about until now. The idea that textile and text start from the same thing. Linda, as a curator, how do you approach textile artworks, and how do you see it even after, in this post-pandemic context? Because one of the impressions that I get from the people visiting us and talking about works is that they've never seen so much textile work as they've seen after the pandemics. But how do you as a curator relate to that in your current practice?
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. But is it like after the pandemic, you would say, because people were like consuming more images maybe online and discovering a lot of artists that were working with this? Probably, I don't know.
That's the working hypothesis, that people, like Megan said, you want to touch the work physically with it. I don't know if it's just a theory. It sounds plausible, but it also may be an idea of seeing something or experiencing something different than the classical image that we're used to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and speaking of like classical images, I think this is like a good point why this interests me so much, because it has so many layers, you know, working with fabric. I think it's not, yeah, as you say, it's not classical in the sense it's not a painting, but it can transport so many things. Like, first of all, yeah, and what it shows, but then also taking the medium itself as a critique, maybe, of as what we talked about, you know, like it's considered like a women's thing, it's not considered fine art, and all these levels, they play like a big role in this, and this is what I like. And then like you do it, Megan, I think it's just great. Even, I mean, they're fun, but also, I mean, of course, each of them, for me at least, is also some kind of like comment on society all the time. Like, I don't know, not necessarily a critique, but also often it is. And this is something that I find amazing, like how you manage to have like everyday situations and like put them into this, like, you know, like, okay, yeah, I have never thought about this. So
that's very nice of you to say, and I really appreciate your kind words. I also have a very strong relationship with words, and I think that's why you and I also get along very well. And I don't know, because you work a lot with text. I also work a lot with text, but I've always had a certain knack for some words and for some combinations of words, and I'm constantly thinking of like word play and changing letters between each other, and just thinking about this in general. And I, even in my paintings, I even use a lot of text, which some people frown upon this in the academic world, I don't know. And
by the way, it's not easy to work with text like this, and I think you're always on point, which is not easy.
I do spend a lot of time, and I really like to get it. I like to get it exactly how I want it, and I have usually my method is, I think of something in my head, or I hear something, I hear a conversation, it makes me go somewhere else, and then I get an idea, and I have a notes app or a journal, and if I lost either of these two things, I would be devastated, because I'm writing in there constantly, and I have something, and I actually, if I write in my journal, I'll also write it in my notes app, and I'll change it until I come to a something that I find is absolutely correct. Like sometimes I'll have an idea that will seemingly not make any sense, and once I sit with it for a few days, I'll figure out the exact word that I wanted to use there. And for me, it just, I don't know, it's kind of just intuitive. I just think that this word needs to be here. Even, I don't know, I'll see, people will see my works in progress, and they're like, Megan, what is this, and I just say, trust the process, and people are like, oh, I get it now. I understand what you wanted to do.
At the same time, although you have this palpable, very tangible textile works, you also get inspired a lot from digital media. There's a lot of commentary on memes and sort of like digital content that people would freely share on TikTok or on Facebook. It's very much connected with the lingo of the last 10 years of the online world.
Yes, I'm also, sorry, continue. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to say that I find it interesting because it flips back and forth from something that's very tangible to something that's very virtual.
Yes, I do also, back to this like urban scavenging. I also do this on the internet, and I don't know, I absorb a lot of information anyway, as we all do. And I do pay a lot of attention to memes and to things that I see. And for some reason, I just think that it's this weird, like, sort of responsibility that I feel to make things, what's the word, like make them physical and make them forever, because maybe nobody else will do it. So if I see something that I find really funny, maybe not funny, whatever, it's something that speaks to me, and I just think that it should be transformed into a physical permanent form, and because maybe nobody else will do that, and then I'll forget, and I don't know, some things should just go down in crocheted history.
Which is, it's actually super linked to a sort of curatorial practice as well. How come your interest into textile media came through, and is it a more recent development, or is it something that you followed throughout your career, Linda?
Well, I think it is something a little more recent, I would say. But yeah, because of the things that I said, of how it's connected to comment on society in this specific moment, also now, you know, like in the times that we live in. Yeah, and I think this is something that interests me always in art. Like, it's not tied to, like, my interest is not tied to a specific medium per se, but it's a lot about the content as well, and how it's always connected to, like, this particular time that we live in. Yeah,
I feel like you also mentioned before, textile tells a story about how art is seen from the perspective of women, but also layers and different layers of society about what high art is and what low art is, or what's craft and what's art. And I feel like it connects a lot, especially Megan's work, with a lot of feminist message, even though it is not outright said so in many of the works. Is it because it's textile that it inherently has a feminist message? What do you think, Linda? Sorry.
Well, I mean, it's always a little bit connected, and I think it is important as well, you know, like, there is this history, but I think, like, I mean, nowadays we also have lots of examples of male artists using textile, this is also something that is happening, which is great. But I find it important to have these feminist messages as well, still, you know, even like in 2022. I think this is something that you should never, like, stop doing. And yeah, as you said, even though, like, Megan's word is not, like, only, like, feminist, like, in that sense, but it's just, yeah, it does play a role all the time. And I think, yeah, it's just an underlying thing that you have, and that is great to have, I would say.
Yeah, I've actually had this discussion multiple times with people who are saying, oh, do you consider your artwork feminist artwork? And I say, well, I do, mainly, even if it's not outright, like, activist work. It doesn't have to be in your face telling you something. I feel like it depends on where the artist is coming from and what position they have, and it doesn't necessarily, I don't know, it's you don't have to talk about feminism for it to be a feminist artwork. Also, it doesn't have to be a direct display of what you want to show, or even works that have no women on it, or just, I don't know, all of my works are anyway from the perspective of a woman. So I feel like it's
exactly,
yeah,
what plays a
sort
role
of
in
creating my own universe of an ideal
yeah, you're having a strong
feminist alien
voice,
world. Yeah.
through this.
And then it's also a problem of geography, like a question on geography. For example, there is a very deep-rooted textile tradition in Romania. In different areas of the country, you have different methods, different styles. But then the technique of rug hooking, I don't know, or I don't think
there is something very similar in Romania. Yes, there's something very similar in Romania. it's not quite the same, and it's usually with very thin fabric, but also mainly used for decorative things, not necessarily for on the floor. Usually floor rugs are made on the large loom. Also with scraps, so the same idea, just a different technique. And but I have talked to many especially elderly women in the countryside who have told me that oh, we know this technique, and they've given me advice. Oh, look at this, yes, we know this. But mainly for decorative things, for example, for something that would also go on the wall, which also would keep you warm, not necessarily art. I don't know what you could describe.
I think the point is not to make too much of a distinction, but I think that we all grew, especially in Eastern Europe, and I don't know about your experience, Linda, but I'm very curious, like these old houses that had rugs on the walls. So that's something that at least our collective imagination is used to. I don't know how that translates to Western Europe or to Germany.
Yeah, I mean, a lot less, I would say, at least here. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I think it is. It's also like in different parts of the world, like in Africa or Asia, you also I have strong images like in my head also from these kind of traditional, like textile works. I wouldn't necessarily connect it so much to here. Yeah.
But that's also now with these videos of crafts and art online. And I know that you're very well connected to it, Megan. There's also like a global community on textile and rug hooking.
Yeah, there are a lot of people, and I'm also I try and keep in touch with what's going on. Also, I spend a lot of time on the internet. And I try and talk to many people actually, and sort of communicate and see what's going on, and that's really nice. But I think it's a good movement. I don't know. I feel like a lot of female artists have sort of found their voice recently through this, because, and people are saying, oh, why do you like it so much? It just feels right for some reason. And a lot of people have said this, not rug hooking, but also embroidery, also, let's say, like the wide spectrum of different types of textile art. There are some really cool artists out there that do great work, and a lot of them even recently have started doing this. And I don't know, I feel like it's sort of going back to I don't know, it's like putting a twist on what I don't really know how to I'll come back to this.
It's really like there is a book on this. It's called The Subversive Stitch, that talks a lot about this history of textile and how in some moments, especially when seeing a woman sew, it was something that was made in quiet and kind of represented an image of a submissive person who is just sewing and keeping quiet. But then there was also this beautiful description that when a woman sews, she also thinks and plans and develops, of course, whole universe. Yeah. This whole universe around her.
She does have a brain, yes.
And it's there and planning. But it's really nice to see it vindicated from this idea of passiveness to something that's bold, out there, and kind of breaking the rules of the art world to an extent.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's nicely said. And I was also thinking about, because we were talking about these like different maybe cultures and how it's different in every region, because it also plays a role in your work, Megan, because I mean, I would say they are quite universal in terms of what they show, but you also have these backgrounds from America and then from Romania. And I was wondering whether there are maybe some works that you would say are specifically or like particularly, I don't know, something that is more like Romanian, or that you could understand only from a Romanian point of view, or is it like you would say that?
Definitely, yeah. I've noticed a pattern in myself, and actually in the past few years, but even before, that I tend to, all of the works that I make, I kind of just absorb something from my surroundings, and I think of an idea and I like to do it on the spot. For example, if I travel somewhere, something there will make me do something. Like I like to make things that are in their location somehow. So if I'm in Romania, I will tend to make things a little bit more Romania based, because that's what's around me. I like to take direct inspiration. It's not really a choice. I just find them. They are more. They seem more important and they crucial to make at the time than to try and relate to an idea that actually has nothing to do with my physical space. So for me, it's a lot about my physical location of what I do. And actually, my more recent works have not necessarily with Romania or America. I've been sort of going into this other universe where I create these characters, and these characters I actually really feel emotions for. Like I create them, and I like to put them in then in different works, and it's sort of this like ongoing story, and I like them to overlap, even if they don't seem obviously overlapping. For me, they're the same story. These little alien men are also kind of the alien men in a different one, and the spaceship here is also the same spaceship in something else, and the people, it's not really necessarily the same person, it's sort of the same archetype of person. And I don't know, I've questioned whether I have ever made anyone upset with my work. I don't really know if this is true, because I don't think too much about this, and I try not to take anything too seriously. I just kind of do it and see what happens, and if people like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. But it's also been interesting to see like a different feedback in this way of, oh, I didn't understand, I thought you were trying to make fun of a certain like type of person or a certain type of lifestyle or a certain type of, which is not the case. Usually it's like double ironic, making fun of the people who would make fun of this thing, which I don't know. I try and keep it light though. For some reason, I do try and keep it a bit light, a bit whimsical. I don't know how else I could describe this, but location does matter. Location.
Okay. Yeah.
I also feel like they're very full of context, and that if anything, it makes you curious about the context if you don't know it. Exactly what's going on there, or what the political case is exactly. But I think that's kind of
I think they still work, you know, like this is the image you just showed. I mean, I don't know the people, maybe the two men on that advertisement, but I mean, I get the aesthetic, right? I mean, this is just, I think it works in so many ways.
This is quite an American work, actually, because this is in New York, and I saw this sign. This it's actually a whole thing. There's this sign, which are basically lawyers, which I feel like it's who basically they help you out if you get hurt on the job and this kind of thing. But they're very heavily advertised. This was everywhere in New York. It was all over the entire city. And I just found it such a simple graphic design, and the phone number is just 800-888-888, and you can see on the actual thing that, I don't know, it's just a ridiculous advertisement to me. And so I decided to do this just because I just wanted to I don't know, maybe it won't be there anymore. Maybe I just want to have a physical version of it for myself with my own faces. And actually, a few months later, they went out of business, and it was quite a big thing on the internet. And all of these signs got taken down all over the city, and people were stealing them. And people were like, "No, I want the sign," because it sort of went down in New York recent history that Celino and Barnes lawyers are cool, apparently.
Okay.
When they're gone.
I mean, that's quite a back story I mean,
yeah, I had
it's
no
quite
idea when I did the
complex
work.
as a story.
I just like the poster, and then I found out later people were sending me articles like, oh no, they went out of business. People are grabbing signs off the street and taking them home and selling them on eBay, and like it was ridiculous.
Because it becomes sort of from advertisement to culture, then to the realization that, I mean, underneath it, it's a pretty dark story about people needing lawyers
Yeah.
to litigate their way out of a work injury, which would probably not make sense otherwise.
Yeah, these types of lawyers though don't always help you. They're kind of like the sketchy lawyers, so that's why I don't know, it's just and there are always ads on TV and like these will help you for your malpractice or whatever happened, and it actually just ends up costing you a lot, or it's just a scam. That does happen a lot with these types of lawyers. Like they're called ambulance chasers actually, and yeah.
Unbelievable.
I feel like that's a very American thing. I don't know. It really resonated with me there, and I like the aesthetic of it too. So it's a combination of different.
So it was, I think, very interesting to have this meeting of very contextual work and also linked to this sort of global anxiety on work injuries and insurances and life quality that I think traverses cultures all over, especially during these times and especially in the COVID context.
And I liked what you said, global anxiety. Actually, we've talked about this before. It's actually quite a good, like, I don't know, these overarching, like everyone can relate to this, and sometimes people don't talk about it. And I don't know, we should talk about things. We should, if you're uncomfortable, something you don't like something, you feel awkward. And everyone in the world does, because everyone has the same problem, whatever that problem may be, or whatever that interaction. And we should shed light on this and just kind of laugh at it, because we're all doing the same thing. So that's also kind of what I try to do inadvertently through all of these works.
Yeah, and because I feel like from a curatorial point of view, that's also very interesting to have this sort of reflection that coincides with a good dose of humor as well. Makes the work a lot more approachable in a way.
Yeah, well, and it's already sad as it is, like why is this like?
Yeah, I actually found because I do use a lot of humor in my work. I've talked about this before, but I was always trying to make very serious work at some point, like even at university. And I was constantly, I even found drawings like from when I was a kid, actually, and they're the exact same thing. It's I don't know, it's great. So I sort of took a break. The characters, they're talking to each other, these sort of comic like things, which I also really like comics, and I was very into comics at some point, so that also has a big influence on what I do. But I kind of like the idea of just one comic, like not multiple panels. I like to tell one story in one frame, which is sort of the mix between painting and comics. So you just have like, you got to say it all right here in whatever shape it is. But I forgot.
Yeah. No, it's I think there's a lot to unpack, especially with humor and art. That's always like, I think it would be a whole new chapter with it. But I want to keep things going and curious for our next meeting as well, and to maybe have chapter talks on each one of them. Mm-hmm. And I want to ask Linda, just as we're approaching the end of the talk, what are your next plans? I know that we want to invite you again in Bucharest in September, so I'm really looking forward to that. But what's happening now? What are the main events that are happening or planning for the next year or so?
Mm-hmm. Well, except from working for the gallery with our regular program, we're planning with my collective. I have plans to do like a video work, like a video art kind of little festival throughout the city, because I mean, you probably also have this in Bucharest. You have these, like, nowadays there's screens everywhere, you know. I mean, you know this like for a long time from New York, but for here, it's kind of new that you have, like, in every little kiosk, you have a screen on Kurfürstendamm, which is like the main, like a huge shopping street with lots of fancy shops. And there you have this, like, like whole, like, big screens and having advertisements all the time, you know. It's like basically you have these, like, information all the time shouting at you. And so we want to use these screens throughout the city and show some video art, you know. This is one of the projects that we have.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah. And then this is the idea of, you know, using the city in a different way and, like, the spaces that exist. And we also probably gonna collaborate with a queer feminist bookstore in Berlin and make a show about, it's again this language topic, you know, like writing and how it's connected, like, with art actually. So literature and writing and art. So we will invite some artists to show their works inside the bookstore, actually.
That's actually great. Just going there into the urban space and making it work.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
I think that relates a lot to this art on different levels and different, kind of getting out of the classical art space as well.
Yeah, exactly. And make it approachable as well to everyone, you know, like
I fully agree on that, because a lot of people who might not have experience in the art world, who would love, and I genuinely think that most people would really enjoy seeing art sometimes, but a lot of people are a bit intimidated. And that also just comes from the whole weight of the whole art scene and art world, all universally, internationally, universally. Hopefully there's art other places in the universe. But
yeah, I mean, you right now also, you, Megan, have two artworks in Berlin at Moto Books in a group show that's called Mind the Gap, which is actually really great. It concerns a lot of this right-wing extremism that's been coming about in the recent times. And very much looking forward for your next solo show at the gallery as well, at Ancapotrash Gallery in Bucharest.
Yes, I'm working on that, so that's my main focus.
And for those of us watching and still don't know, you can follow Megan Dominescu also on Instagram at @Dominescu. And you're always posting and you're always online, which I find great, especially from an artist working so much with textile. And we really look forward to update you more on Linda's projects as well. So maybe we can share some links in the comment section so everybody is connected. Thank you so much for bearing with me through another Zoom online conversation.
Thank you for having
this is one of my first Zooms online, so I had a great time. Too many more.
Too many more. And thank you a lot. I'll be a bit awkward trying to figure out the technology of transmitting and stopping the live on Facebook. Thank you.
But thank you for the invitation, and nice to see you again, Linda. And I hope we see each other soon, face to face.
It was fun.
Okay, great. Thanks. I'm just gonna stop the recording now, and then the live on Facebook. Or yes, stop live stream. Good. Thanks.